one thing I've learned that nobody talks about is this. The agents that work the leads that nobody really wants, the ones that everyone calls bad leads, they end up being the best closers. Okay. And my name is Giovanni Madrid, and I'm going to explain the reason why in this video. Because the fact of the matter is, most agents look at a list of leads and they want the gold ones, right? They want the people who are ready to buy, who already know they need life insurance, who have money sitting in the bank waiting to be spent. And I get it. I mean, that sounds great, right? But here's what actually happens. When you only work the easy leads, you never build the skill that separates a $50,000 agent from a $100,000 agent. You never go through the actual reps. You never learn pattern recognition. And you never develop the influence that comes from abundance. Okay. And so, with that being said, I'm going to break down three things for you today. Number one, the reps phase, which is pretty much free training that most agents are paying thousands of dollars for when they could be getting it for free. Then number two, the pattern recognition phase, which is where most agents quit, but it's actually where the skill actually gets built. And number three, the influence phase, which is where abundance kicks in and your conversations, your actual conversion rate goes up because you're not desperate anymore, right? You've seen it all. You've heard every single objection and you know how to handle them. Okay, so let's get into it. So the first thing you want to understand is this. Every lead is practice, right? Every single conversation you have, whether that person buys or not, is giving you reps. And reps are what build skill. You can watch all the YouTube videos you want. You can buy all the courses. You can go to all the seminars. But until you actually get on the phone and talk to people, you're not learning like anything that's going to move the needle forward. Okay. And here's the thing. Yellow leads, the ones that people kind of complain about, the ones that say, I'm not interested, or I already have insurance, or call me back 6 months from now. Those leads actually give you more at bats than buying H leads and hoping for gold, right? Because when you're working kind of like volume, when you're calling 50, 60, 80 people a day, you're getting reps that agents who are calling like 10 qualified leads per week will never get. And I'm going to tell you a story that proves this, okay? Because, well, back in September 2025, I hired a virtual assistant. This was like September 22nd to be exact, the same day my wife got her bar results, right? I was training this virtual assistant while Kelly was waiting outside, and she was rushing me to finish so we could go get her results together. But I had to get this VA trained because I needed help with like follow-up, because I was doing all the follow-up myself. And my cost per acquisition was sitting at around $600, right? And my average commission was $1,900 after about 43 days to close. So the numbers worked, the numbers made sense, but I needed to scale, and I couldn't get myself to scale if I was doing everything myself. So here's the thing. I had hired a previous virtual assistant back in June, like 2025, and I paid him for 2 months, right? Daily work. And 2 months, he got like one appointment. In 2 months, right? One appointment. And I found out through a prank call to a friend that the VA's number was showing up as spam likely. That's why nobody was answering. And I went through all types of like number registrations. I tried to fix it. It still didn't work. So I fired him and I went back to self-scheduling leads on my calendar. And for 3 months, I was doing that, right? And it worked. I kind of started closing deals, but I knew that I couldn't keep doing it like forever. So when I hired the new VA on September 22nd, in the first meeting, he told me like 80% of leads weren't answering. So I jumped on a Zoom with my mentor, Igor, and he told me something like that I'll never forget. He told me about a dialer that calls like multiple people at the same time, and it has like a voicemail where if someone answers and someone else answers as well, it's like, hey, I can't hear you, let me call you right back. And that gets people to like pick up and stay waiting for you because they think that you're actually real, like the person that got disconnected. So I tried it like that same night in the first 10 minutes, and like a bunch of calls went out, like a bunch of appointments got scheduled. And it was crazy because here's the thing, like the dialer didn't make the leads better. The dialer just gave me more reps. It gave me more like at bats, and it gave me, more importantly, more conversations. And every single one of those conversations, whether the person booked or not, was training. It was free training, right? And so, with that being said, if you're sitting there kind of like complaining about your leads, if you're saying my leads are trash or maybe these people aren't qualified, I want you to understand something. You're kind of passing up free training. Okay. Every call is a rep. Every objection you hear is teaching you how to handle the next objection. And the agents who work 80 leads a week are getting 8 times the training of the agent who's only working 10 good leads. And that's just math, right? The more reps you get, the faster you learn. And the faster you learn, the better you get. And the better you get, the more money you make. It's that simple. It's as simple as that. Okay, so now that you understand reps, let's talk about what happens after you've already done enough reps, right? This is the pattern recognition phase. And this is where most agents quit. This is where people kind of start getting frustrated because they've made like 100 calls, 200 calls, 300 calls, and they're not seeing the results they thought they would see, okay? And they say, hey, like this doesn't work for me, or the leads are bad, I'm done. But here's what's actually happening, right? You're in the phase where your brain starts learning patterns, right? You're starting to recognize objections before the person even finishes the sentence. And you're starting to hear like the tone shifts, and you're starting to notice when someone says maybe like, I'm not interested, but their voice has a question mark at the end, which means they're actually like curious, but they don't know, maybe they don't want to seem too eager, right? So you're starting to pick up on all these little micro signals that you would never notice if you were only talking to 10 people a week. Okay. And I'm going to be real with you. This phase sucks, right? Because you're putting in the work, you're making the calls, and it feels like kind of like nothing's happening. And it feels like you're just getting rejected over and over and over again. And that's when most people quit. They say, hey, like I've been doing this for a month and I haven't made any sales. This is a waste of time. But here's the thing, like the skill is being built in the background. Okay. Your brain is kind of like processing patterns. It's learning what works and what doesn't. And it's learning how to read people, how to adjust your tone, how to maybe ask the right questions at the right time. And all of that is invisible until it's not. Until one day you get on a call and you know exactly kind of like what to say, you know when to pause, you know how to handle the objection because you've heard it 47 times already. Okay. And I learned this the hard way because back when I was first getting started, I was doing like the same thing everyone does. I was chasing kind of like the easy clients, that I was looking for people that were already sold, ready to buy life insurance, people who just needed someone to hand them a pen and sign the policy. And I thought I was smart, but I thought I was being efficient with my time. But then I had this moment, and I'm going to share a story with you that it's not my story, but it's a story that my mentor told me about. There was this guy who worked for the number one timeshare company in the US, and he finished number one out of 3,000 reps for 5 out of 6 years. Okay. 5 out of 6 years, number one. And the CEO asked him, how are you doing this? Like, what's your secret? And the guy said, you're wasting all the good leads on junior reps. Meanwhile, wasting 2/3 of my time with people who can't afford anything. Just give me the best leads and I'll make you a lot of money. So the CEO tried at this, like he tried this, and next year his production went up like 5 times, right? And when they rolled it out nationwide, the company went from $200 million to $1 billion in sales over 5 years. Now, here's the thing. That story is not only about like working good leads, okay? That story is about skill. That rep had done so many reps, he had built so much pattern recognition that when you gave him a good lead, he could close it at a rate that like junior reps couldn't, right? But he only got to that level because he put in the reps. He worked the bad leads, who went through the pattern recognition phase. And that's kind of like what built the skill that made him valuable enough to get the best leads, okay? And so with that being said, if you're in the phase where you're making calls and nothing is happening, I need you to understand something. You're not like, it's not like you're failing. You're learning and you're building the skill. You're going through like the pattern recognition phase. And if you quit now, you're quitting right before the skill actually kicks in, right? You're quitting right before you start to see the patterns. And that is the biggest mistake you can make. Okay, so now let's talk about what happens after you've done the reps and you've gone through the pattern recognition phase, right? This is the influence phase. And this is where everything changes, because once you've talked to 500 people, and once you've heard every objection, once you've closed deals and you've lost deals and you've learned from both, something changes. You kind of stop being so desperate, right? Because you stop feeling like your whole mouth depends on this one person booking an appointment. And when that change happens, your conversion rate goes up, because people can kind of feel desperation. Okay. They can feel when you need the sale. And when they feel that, they pull back. They say, hey, like, let me think about it. Or I need to talk to my spouse, or call me back in 6 months. But you're in the influence phase when you've done all the reps and you know you're going to talk to 50 more people this week. You don't need this one person to say yes, right? And that confidence, that abundance, that is what actually closes the deal. And I'm gonna tell you another story. Okay, this is a story from my own life. Back in July 2025, to be exact, I was going through like one of the worst crises of my entrepreneurial journey. My campaigns weren't working. I had changed a process that was working, so I risked like a 20% guarantee for a potential 10% increase. And it kind of backfired because I wasn't making sales and I wanted to like leave my body because I was so stressed. And my wife, she was at the dinner table one night after a very stressful day. She was studying for the bar, and she asked me like, how do you stay so positive? And I asked her to give me like 3 minutes because I had to think about it, because I always kind of hid my stress from her. I didn't want her to see how bad it was. But after 3 minutes, I answered. I said, I burned the bridges. I pretty much have no plan B. And here's what I mean by that, right? Commitment isn't about confidence, it's about removing the exit. When you remove the exit, when you decide that you're all in, that you're going to make this work pretty much no matter what, that changes everything, because you stop looking for the easy way out. You stop hoping that the next lead is going to kind of like save you. You stop waiting for someone to, I would say, like hand you the answer. You just do the work. You make the calls, you get the reps, you go through the pattern recognition phase, and eventually you get to the influence phase. And when you get to the influence phase, when you've done the volume, when you've talked to hundreds or thousands of people, you have abundance, right? You're not desperate anymore. You know that if this person doesn't buy, 10 more people are going to call you back, maybe tomorrow. And that confidence, that abundance, that is what makes you influential. Okay. That is what makes people trust you. That is what makes people say yes. And so, with that being said, if you're sitting there right now thinking, my leads are bad, or I'm not getting results fast enough, I need you to understand something. Okay. The volume is the advantage. Okay. The reps are the advantage. The pattern recognition phase, that's the advantage, because every single call you make, every single objection you hear, every single person who says no, they're kind of like training you. They're building that skill that you need. And once you have that skill, once you have the abundance, once you're in the influence phase, that is when everything changes, right? That is when your conversion rate goes up. That is when you start making real money. So to bring this all together, right? Number one, the reps phase. Every lead is free training. You have to work the volume. You have to get the reps. You have to stop complaining about bad leads, and you have to start seeing them as practice. Then number two, the pattern recognition phase. This is where most agents quit, but this is where the skill gets built. Okay. You're learning patterns. You're learning objections. You're learning how to read people. And I don't want you to quit before the skill actually kicks in. And number three, the influence phase. Once you've done the reps and once you've gone through the pattern recognition phase, you develop abundance. And abundance is what makes you influential. And abundance is what actually closes deals, right? And here's the bottom line. The agents who work the leads that nobody wants, they become the agents everyone wants to be because they did the work, they got the reps, they built the skill, and now they're unstoppable. Okay. So if you're watching this and you're in the grind right now, if you're making calls and maybe nothing is happening, I'm rooting for you. Okay. Stay with it, do the reps, go through all the phases, and trust the process because on the other side of this, there's abundance, there's influence, and there's success. So if you guys have any questions, I'm here. I'm rooting for you. Let's get to work.